to this second episode of our tattooing and NFT series, where we're really just trying to wrap our heads around this new technology, learn how tattooers, early adopters, are using it, and also maybe how we might use it as tattooers or visual artists in the future, what it might mean to our lives, to our businesses. If you haven't yet seen episode 1, I will link to it in the video description. I would recommend watching it before this, especially if you're new to NFTs and blockchain technology. In that first episode, we talk about blockchain, NFT, cryptocurrency, how they're all related. We try to get layman's definitions of each of the terms and just get a good introduction to the technology. So I would watch that before diving into this second episode, where we get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of the NFT space. We'll focus today on utility, generative art, and then we'll wrap up with some of the current problems with NFTs and this new technology. Obviously, it's still in its infancy and it has a lot of challenges ahead of it. So we'll hit on that a little bit as well. Now, when it comes to utility, it is kind of the heart and soul of the NFT. It's what it's about. And I'd like to share, before we start the episode, another story, not related to tattooing, but that might help you understand utility a little bit better. I think these stories, for me at least, these stories kind of coming in from different places, from different perspectives, are what kind of helped me to get the base understanding that I'm starting to get about this new technology. So my son is almost 12 years old, Max, and he has been for the last 2 or 3 years playing the game Fortnite, basically every day. And so in Fortnite, you have these assets called skins that you can buy, and it's basically a character that you can play the game as. You also have emotes, which are kind of dances. I'm sure you guys have seen the Fortnite dances that have become so popular that you can do within the game. So Max has literally traded every actual dollar he's received over the last 3 years for birthdays, Christmas, whatever, for a V-Buck, which is the currency that the game Fortnite uses. And then he buys these skins and he buys these emotes. Well, recently he's kind of gotten over Fortnite. He's got an Oculus now and he's doing all of this VR kind of stuff. So all of these skins and all these assets that he's bought for Fortnite are kind of sitting there dormant, not being used. He's invested hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into this game, and now it's just sitting there kind of useless. Now, if those skins and emotes had been NFTs, he would have the opportunity to sell those skins, to sell those assets on a third-party marketplace to someone who is still playing Fortnite and could possibly sell those skins for far more than he paid for them. Those assets are sold based on like the version of the game. So there are new chapters that come out of Fortnite every so often. And some of these skins are only available for a limited time and then you can't buy them anymore. So let's say he has the Midas skin from chapter 2, season 1, that's all tricked out and topped out. And you can't buy that anymore. It may be worth thousands of dollars, if you could sell it, if it were an NFT that he could show ownership and he could transfer that ownership to someone else. So another option might be that if he had that NFT in his own wallet and he moved on to another game, he could use that same skin in a different game. Now, it might manifest itself differently in, say, Minecraft or Gorilla Tag, whatever he's playing now, than it did in Fortnite, but he would still have access to it and be able to plug it in and use it, in another game. So that's kind of how NFTs are being used or can be used in the gaming industry. Now, I'd ask that you kind of use your tattoo creative mind and think about what that might mean for how you interact with your clients as a tattooer, and keep that in mind as we go through this episode and talk to these artists who are early adopters of NFTs. I think there's a ton of potential for us to get creative and use these things in our own tattoo work, our own illustrations, and as a way to kind of gamify our relationship and engage our audience in a new way. So with that said, let's jump on into this episode, talk a little bit about generative art, about utility, and then also about some of the problems that we're having in the NFT space, or some of the challenges, the roadblocks ahead. Enjoy.
Yeah. It's funny. Very similar for me when the concept was first introduced, and it was this idea of just digitizing. To me, the most simple version of it was kind of digitizing, of maybe one of my a high quality, digital version of one of my paintings or drawings. And I thought, well, what would keep someone else from photographing it from a different angle and having two NFTs based off the same drawing or adding a filter to it or whatever. And so I was thinking about it in such a simple way that it just didn't make any sense to me whatsoever. And it's been kind of like an onion that I've just had to continue to peel layers back. And I go like, okay, I see the value in that piece of it, but I'm still confused by this piece of it.
And you know what? Now that, and we were talking about that, one of the guys on my team who's also been big into the NFT space for a long time gave me a great analogy, and I'm going to share it. I'm not going to take credit for it, but he gave me a great analogy for it, because you see everybody's getting into the NFT space now. Disney, Adidas, Nike, right? Everybody's blowing up on such a big thing. And so when I was getting into this, and we brought him onto the team, and he started to explain things that we needed to add to the project. One of them was utility. That's one of the most important things about an NFT, right? So he broke it down like this to me. He goes, imagine Disney annual passes were NFTs. A lot of us know that if you buy a Disney annual pass, you either pay about $700 or $800 up front, or you can pay it off monthly. But and what comes with that annual pass is you get access to all of the parks, right? You get discounts on merch, you get maybe access to special areas, and then it comes with all these utilities, all these benefits and perks that come with this annual pass. But what happens if you buy the annual pass and a month later you realize, oh man, something's going on at work, or we have to move and we're not going to be able to use it for the rest of the year? Well, you're stuck paying that for the rest of the year. There's no getting out of it, or you can't give it to anybody else to do anything. And he's like, well, what if the actual annual pass was an NFT, and now it shows your ownership to it, and you could actually sell it to someone else, and in there, the technology, the authentication, it now shows ownership to somebody else. You could get your money back, and now it gives somebody else all this utility and access to that. And I was like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Okay, I get it.
Yeah, that's what's really cool about it is there's this intersectionality that you just kind of pointed out between gamification, financialization, like you can financialize anything, turn it into tokens, and create a value for whatever you've just made. You can gamify it to incentivize people, and there's just something that's wired into our human genome, our human brain, that where we love games and we love like learning through games, and we love gaining something through playing a game and getting that reward, that like piece of cheese at the end, so so it like perfectly incentivizes all these like naturally occurring human behaviors in a way that intersects different media and different industries. And so I think, you described it pretty well just then. Like NFTs definitely have the potential to be way more than just what they are. They can cross over into physical world items or experiences, and bridge digital with physical, virtual with actual. It's just a fun, exciting space, honestly. Like if you're a content creator of any kind, not just an artist, but any kind of content creator, it's really it really presents these unique opportunities to sort of intersect and gamify and do different things and engage with people in different new ways.
So whatever utilities are connected to these NFTs, right? So as I said before, like anyone who owns one of my NFTs automatically gains access to the Richmond Tattoo and Arts Festival, right? For life. As long as they hold that NFT, they can get into my tattoo convention for free. So, it costs, I don't know, if you want to do a weekend pass, I think it costs like $45 to get in. So it's $45 a year that, you get if that's something that you're into. So like, let's say anybody in Richmond who goes to the Richmond Tattoo and Arts Festival every year, they're essentially saving $45 a year, which isn't a ton, but that's just like one basic utility. The other massive utility that we plan on selling with, or the massive utility that we plan on giving with the NFT is the intellectual property rights. So let's say you had a t-shirt line and you wanted a t-shirt design from Jesse Smith. Then what you can do is you could essentially just buy one of my NFTs and print it on your t-shirts and sell it. So you own the rights to that image now. So, and that's a massive thing, essentially back in the days, people would hit me up and they would hire me and they'd say, hey, I'll give you X amount of dollars or X percentage or whatever to make t-shirts to your design. Well, I'm basically going to be selling these NFTs for, I think, $200, $250 a piece. So it's like you get a design from me Now, granted, you would have to, like, we're going to do this thing called blind boxing. Actually, I don't think it's called blind boxing in the NFT world. What's it called, Jason, in the NFT world?
I believe a terminology used is just, packs. Kind of like, when you buy
Packs.
card packs, it's a pack.
Okay.
So you know what blind boxing is, Jake?
No.
So basically, like, blind boxing is like you'll buy an NFT, but you don't really know what you're getting, right? So you essentially say, okay, Jesse, I want to buy a 5-pack of your NFTs for whatever the price is. And let's just say it's $200 because that's an easy one, right? So you give me $1,000, I give you 5 NFTs, but you don't know what they are. And then we release them on the specific date. And when we release them, you get to see your 5 NFTs. And when you see them, you get to say, okay, there's a website called Rarity Sniper that you can run them through, and it'll tell you how rare your image is in relevance to all the rest of the images that we've created. So what that does is that essentially, like, it kind of evens the playing field at the beginning, but then on the secondary market, which is almost, obviously it can go on forever, but almost immediately after that, let's say you are a t-shirt company and you want this specific one, you just run through all the people that are selling them and you say, ooh, I want that one. You can either buy it for the price that they're selling for, if they're selling it, or you can make an offer to them. They also, I think, they have the potential to auction it off as well. So, and if you're going off of rarities, you can say, oh, I want the number 1 on Jesse's collection. And that could be a selling point. So maybe you have to pay someone $1,000 for that. And the cool side from the artist perspective is they sell for $1,000. We get, 7.5%. So is that $75? That's $75 off of that $1,000, added to the initial amount that we sold it for. So the potential here is pretty massive.
So that's another thing we did to make the NFT its own unique thing. So you're not just buying like a JPEG of my painting. They're all animated in some way. They all have certain motions or like digital effects happening to the image, just to make it different from owning a print or a painting or just right-clicking the JPEG and saving it to your desktop. So they're all basically animated GIFs.
When I first heard the term, I had heard the term generative art for years, and I always thought of it as artwork that was created 100% by the computer, right? Like, that's the only thing I'd ever heard with generative art. And then as I learned a little bit about NFTs, I found that generative art was like this kind of hybrid between what seemed to me to be very simple, almost vector-based, stylized, pieces of art that were just like swapping out pieces, from each other. And I didn't really get the value in that. I felt like it made it like kind of cheesy and goofy. But as I've talked to people, it seems that like the way that generative art is, it comes together has different levels of kind of scarcity or rarity, right?
It's all coded in. You can code this one feature is only going to happen 3 times, and this other feature you write into the code, it'll happen 100 times.
Okay.
And so that's a very popular methodology right now in the NFT world, is to release a series of, say, 10,000. And within those 10,000 are maybe 100 different programmable features, but each feature has its own level of how many times it occurs. So you could, and so that's sort of the gamification, that's the way people are gamifying it, because so when they announce their public sale that they're dropping this NFT series, the images aren't revealed yet. So you literally, like, no one knows what they bought. So you go and buy one, and then you wait for them to reveal it and to see which one you bought. And you may luck out and get the most rare one that's worth a ton of money. Or you might, like most people, get only one of the common ones. But it's a fun game to play because you're like literally just like buying a raffle ticket basically and seeing what you win.
Yeah. It reminds me of like, people buying like a box of baseball cards, hoping that whatever, a Mickey Mantle or something is in it, like you really have no idea. And then go ahead.
It's a direct one-to-one version of that, just in the digital space. So people took that exact literal concept and just made it digital.
Yeah. So I guess within that, if there are multiple characteristics, that are applied generatively to a piece of art, like someone may end up with 2 or 3 different characteristics that are super rare. So it's like, it's not just, this one rarity that might pop up. You may be the one person that ends up with the ape with sunglasses and the banana and whatever
that's generated the need for like data-driven rarity websites. So like a third-party website separate from OpenSea marketplace that literally just their software is designed to filter through all this data and pump out a very accurate rarity rating for every single NFT project that signs up to use that third-party software.
Oh yeah. So you could, if you end up with a Bored Ape, you can actually go to this website or whatever, plug in your actual NFT, and it'll kind of rate the rarity of your.
Yes,
of your
and that
NFT.
becomes important once people are attaching high monetary value to these things, right? Like you need to be able to quantify exactly how much this thing is worth, because now all of a sudden there's a lot of money on the line.
Right.
If your NFT series blows up and gets very valuable, now you really do need truly like, impartial data-driven analytics on exactly how rare this is, because you need to know exactly how much to sell it for.
Yeah, so what makes generative art a really cool concept when it launched is that it makes each art unique in itself. And for example, I believe it was a CryptoPunk Lara Lab and Bored Ape Yacht Club. They really pioneered this movement in terms of everyone had their own unique piece of art, and they could use it as a self-expression of, them as a person. And this is what allows people to, purchase a generative art or, PFP in this case, and they can say, hey, this is me. I see myself in this image, whether it's abstract or literal, and each each accessory of that generative art has a certain rarity to it, which also correlates to its value. So for example, if there's a character, it has, a set of eyes, mouth, and a hair, each of those accessories would have a different rarity. So if he had like a spiky hair, that rarity would be like a 1%. But if he had like, normal looking eyes, and that rarity is like, 15%. We see that, the spiky hair is very rare, and therefore that also further drives up the price value of that specific generative art. So it allows people to be very expressive, not only on a visual sense, but also they understand that there's no other piece like it because it's, generated via an algorithm. And at the same time, they can associate each accessory with a rarity. And that's also another way to really flex on how unique their character is.
How important is it for these underlying currencies cryptocurrencies to kind of like find baselines in their value? When you have something like, when you have Ethereum ranging in a 12-month period from being $300 to $4,500 or something like that, or Bitcoin going from 60,000 to 30,000, it seems like that makes it difficult for it, since we're valuing these things in whatever currency they're built on, whatever platform they're built on. It seems like as long as these cryptocurrencies are as volatile as they are, it makes it really difficult to value the NFTs.
Yeah, and I agree, and that's one of my least favorite aspects of the whole crypto and NFT space, is that everything is still pegged to the dollar. So like, in a way, like, what's the point if it's all just denominated back into dollars? I don't know, but
Right.
it's just dollars don't have all this digital amazing potential that cryptocurrency has.
Mm-hmm.
But you need something that everyone can agree on to value it, to peg it to, to use as your benchmark, your standard. So yeah, all cryptocurrency is pegged back to the dollar, and people figure out its worth or its value based on how many dollars it's worth, which is weird. And I think eventually, hopefully, this technology really takes off. It'll get past that system and actually like become its own intrinsic value that doesn't get traded back out for dollars, which is more and more so like a failing system, honestly. If you study like finance or what's happening like geopolitically, but so that's tough. So it's like, how do you value these things when it's on a layer 2? Like dollar is the layer 1, and then you're valuing this other thing as a layer 2 on top of that. So that's one of the nuances I'm still kind of like wrapping my brain around, and just kind of like, there's just certain things you have to accept about it if you get involved in crypto or NFTs.
Right.
is the volatility of the network you're on, and its native token is going to be volatile. And so how do you price things out? And you just have to accept certain aspects of this new technology that is honestly still in its baby stages, really.
I know like energy usage with crypto and with blockchain has been a big thing in the ways that we prove that these entries in these ledger are true, or either through what they call like a proof of work model, or what's the other one called? Proof of stake.
And there's also proof of history.
Proof of history. Okay. And these are just, and it really is kind of the Wild West right now. We're still just kind of trying to figure out the way that this stuff works and what its potential is, huh?
Yeah, that's true. While blockchain technology has been around for a decent amount of time, it is still very new, because while we have proof of work as a longer used concept, it is true, it could be damaging to the environment because of the amount of computing power required. But if I was to reference a recent coin called like Solana, or recent network, they use a proof of history, and because of that, it drives the gas costs down dramatically, and also, as a byproduct, it helps with the eco-friendly side of it.
I definitely only have like a layperson's knowledge, but yeah, basically you summed it up. Like, proof of work is like all these computers have to run nodes, and each node is contributing its computing power to the network and trying to solve these complex computer code equations that verify a transaction on the blockchain. And that's what locks it in permanently and publicly, is all these computers contribute their computing power to solve this equation. But computers run on electricity, and electricity has to come from somewhere, either coal, wind. So it has to come from somewhere. So yeah, like further down the chain, you have to pay for electricity, and you have to get it from the earth or the sun somehow. So yeah, there's an energy consumption involved. No matter what type of blockchain you're running, proof of stake is simply less energy intensive. It takes less computer use to solve each equation. So it's supposedly more environmentally friendly just because it's just on a quantity basis. It's using less electricity.
Yeah, the gas fees are something we haven't really hit on too much in this series, and especially the way that it fluctuates. And so, is it simply a supply and demand, or you mentioned it could be built into the contract in some way? What are the variables of that?
Gas fees, essentially, you want to say like it seems like it's a tax, but I guess one of the simplest ways to explain it is that when you're trying to do a transaction on the Ethereum blockchain, right? All these computers that have to confirm this transaction that's being used, essentially, which we know that it's not like no one person controls, right? A lot of times you need like 30 confirmations, 35 confirmations. Those are all these essentially computers and servers that are all over the world, all over. So, and they're miners, I'm guessing, is what I understand. They're the ones who are mining Ethereum, and so they're all collecting a little piece of money to do that transaction for you. The faster you want your transactions be done, the more sometimes you could pay a little more in gas, a little less in gas. But if you don't pay enough gas, there's a good chance that your transaction might never get confirmed and it might never go through. So essentially, that's what you're doing. You're paying these little bit of taxes to all these servers that these people have out there in order to give you the confirmations to do the actual transaction and all of that. So every single thing you do on the Ethereum network requires gas. If I wanted to just send you an NFT now to your wallet, they're going to charge me a gas fee. If it's everything and anything on the Ethereum blockchain requires a gas fee. How much is sometimes going to depend on the amount that you send and the amount that transaction is going to take to do and all of that. So
Yeah, to put in super layman term, gas is essentially a fee that you pay on top in order to do the computing power for each transaction made. So if you imagine such as making transaction, let's say not on blockchain technology, you usually pay a fee to a third party. That's pretty typical in a lot of business use cases. But the gas you could just see is the payment towards the blockchain network for the people who are using their computer or miners in order to compute these algorithms to allow you to make these transactions.
time will tell. It's still such a new technology. So I think time will tell whether it all gets co-opted by central forces anyway and just turns into the next centralized kind of data mining, kind of nefarious type of scheme, the way the current web is set up. So, we'll see. I'm hopeful for the best, but I would never hold my breath on anything.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me for this second installment of our Tattooing and NFT series. In the third and final installment, we'll try to wrap it all up. We'll talk about how to get a wallet, how you buy an NFT. We'll talk about how you actually launch an NFT or drop an NFT if that's something that you're interested in doing. And then we'll talk a little bit specifically about each of these guys' individual projects. Nick, as of the time of this series, Nick has already dropped his NFT series, and Jesse and Frank are on the verge of dropping their first NFT series. So we'll talk a little bit about what that experience was like for them. And if you're interested in checking out their NFTs, we'll make sure to have links to all of those things in the video description. Thank you, as always, for supporting what we do, and I'll catch you in the next episode.